Legacy Destruction is finally out in the TCG, and I've talked about a lot of the most powerful cards coming out in the set, such as the Tenpai cards, the Lightsworn cards, and the Yubel cards. But there are a bunch of other powerful secret techs that are available now in this set that you can think about incorporating into your decks or picking up as investment. So today I'm going to be going over some of those that I haven't given the time of day yet, but you absolutely should consider as we move forward into the new TCG meta. And first up, we got the Melodious cards. Now this is a wave of support for an existing deck. However, where I see value in this is not as some deck, but as an engine, using mostly the new cards and a card called Ostinato. Ostinato is an old card that is essentially Shadow Fusion for Melodious monsters. You just have to control nothing on the field. You send 2 from deck to grave, you summon the fusion, and as long as we get some valuable cards in the fusions and the fusion materials, we're looking at something pretty good. What does that entail? Well, let's take a look. Our main fusion monster here is Baka, the Melodious Maestra, and this is what makes it all click. Your Melodious fusion monsters' activated effects cannot be negated, so Ash Blossom will not work on this, but that effect's not the important part. The important thing is, if this card is special summoned, you can special any Melodious monster from your deck, so it immediately gets out another body. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Melodious in your grave, except Baka, and special summon it. So, now an Ostinato generates 3 bodies, because it'll summon the Baka, special 1 from deck, link it away for anything, and revive 1 more monster. So now we have 3 link material off of 1 card. We're seeing the value there. And that's also assuming the cards we special summon from the deck or from the grave don't accomplish anything either, and that'd be presumptuous. The 2 brand new main deck monsters are Refrain and Couplet, the Melodious Songstress. Refrain has a pendulum effect of targeting a Melodious fusion you control and sending a Melodious from your deck to the graveyard to increase the monster's attack. This is important for triggering the Baka's graveyard effect for your combos that don't involve Ostinato. And now its on summon effect grants this card the position of potential 3 of to replace your normal summon in any deck. Or if your deck didn't have a normal summon, then you can fit this in with Ostinato and have 6 powerful 1-card plays. If it's normal or special summon, you can add a Melodious monster from your deck to your hand. And then this next effect is shared by itself and Couplet, and that is if a Melodious fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is in your extra deck, you can place it in the Pendulum Zone. It's important to note there that if this card is fusion summoned from the field and goes to the extra deck, it'll be able to immediately come back out into the Pendulum Zone the same way Wakauchi does. Couplet's effect will let you add a Melodious spell trap from your hand while you control only Melodious monsters. This monster effect isn't important to your combos really, but if this card is added to your hand, you can reveal it in a special level full of Melodious from your hand to graveyard. And then just like Refrain, it'll place itself into the scale when you fuse, and it's in your extra deck. Now the card you want to be adding is another brand new card, Melodious Concerto. Fusion summons a fairy fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, or Pendulum Zone. You can see where we're going here. And then if a Melodious fusion is sent to the graveyard, while this card is in your grave, you can put it on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. So a nice free plus while we're at it. In case you're not seeing it, we can start with Refrain to add our Couplet. Couplet can add our Concerto, and then we can use the Concerto making a Baka. The 2 monsters we fuses will be placed in the Pendulum Scale, and Baka will special summon another Refrain from the deck. Refrain's scale effect can then send the 3rd Refrain targeting the Baka, the attack boost not mattering here. Here we can link for any random link to, does not matter, IP is a good one, and Baka's effect will revive the Refrain from the grave. And here we're making a new card straight out of Age of Overlord, Exceed the Pendulum, which requires 2+ effect monsters, including a Pendulum monster, and 100 attack for each pendulum you control. But where this card is important is during your main phase, you can quick effect special a Pendulum from your hand to grave in defense mode. The level between the Pendulum scales, the 2 cards in your Pendulum zones. So we can get back the Refrain here and link off into Appaloosa. Now we have an Appaloosa and a Pendulum summon set up, 2 level 4s in our extra deck. If we summon those out, we can make a rank 4+ in Appaloosa, and that's relatively strong. We can make Infernal Flame Banshee and get Poplar and go into Snake Eye combos. Or we could do whatever else our heart desires with the monster materials we had. Now, if you open up Ostinato, you can do all this without even normal summoning, and that is truly something that's frightening. Now, the Melodious monsters also got another fusion monster that requires 3, and it's almost like an SP Little Knight. It can quick effect banish any number of Melodious you control to the end phase, and then bounce them any face-up cards opponent controls. This card is not super important for the combos, but can be used in breaking some boards and developing some negates. I'm curious to see how these Melodious cards are going to be integrated into your decks. I don't expect it to be a standalone thing. The old Melodious cards really aren't great, and any that are good lock you into Melodious cards. But as an engine, you can run this 5 to 9 card type of engine, myself favoring the larger engine, into any deck that doesn't feel too bad about giving up some normal summons, or a deck that just needs to push out some extra gas, and you got something that's relatively powerful. What I also like is if your deck has fairies in it, you can also add Herald of the Orange Light, even though these are all fairies as well. And then you add a powerful hand trap to your arsenal that most decks don't get to play. The next card I'd like to talk about is Centurion Axilla, a brand new level 12 synchro for the Centurion theme. It requires one tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters, so completely generic and super easy to summon. Basic cards and spell trap card zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. And this card's special summon, you can add any Centurion card from your deck to your hand. During the end phase, place one of your non-synchro Centurion monsters that's banished or in your grave face up in your spell trap zone as a continuous trap. The card seems not that insane. And when I read it, I thought, why does this matter? If my Centurion deck is already playing, what the hell do I care about having this card? Well, while it may seem unassuming, this card's true power, I think, lies in the fact that you can now use Centurion cards as more of an engine in other decks. Lightsworn, for example, in combo with Minerva Athena, the brand new synchro monster, can send Felice and Wolf type cards from deck to grave. And with that body, you have the level 4 tuner, and you have the level 8 Minerva synchro. Quick access into this level 12 synchro, you can get the Centurion field spell, which will then get you into Centurion plays. And given you already have level 12 synchro in play, Crimson Dragon into King Calamity or even Cosmic Blazer Dragon are incredibly simple and very low commitment. Now, this doesn't just stay between Lightsworn decks. Any deck that has access to level 12 synchros now has a more powerful and easy way to get to Crimson Dragon locks, which honestly, it's not something I'm happy about. It's very toxic. It exists, and you guys should look into it if your deck has any capacity in making level 12 synchros. Another card we should be looking out for is Diels, the original Sin Keeper. Now, because it's not a Diabellstar card, or a Sinful Spoil card, or even a Snake Eye card, it's currently not super searchable in the theme. It's supposed to be this contrast foil to Diabellstar, but its power is actually meant to serve against runics and pendulums. If there's a Sinful Spoil card in either grave, you can special summon it from your hand. So if you're playing a deck with Sinful Spoil cards, you can't use it as an extender. But the real power is your opponent can activate spells with trap cards that were not set. So it's almost like anti-spell fragrance. However, normal spell cards can just be used immediately, so it's not nearly as oppressive. For quick play spells or for pendulum scales, this is still a death sentence, and the commitment for this is relatively low. It also has the ability that if a spell trap is set to the field while this monster is on the field, you target a card you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. That part is not the huge part, although it's nice. The big thing here is if your opponent has a runic deck and you just slam this down, the runics are immediately turned off and you can push through whatever they have. And if it's a pendulum deck, they probably can't do anything. So this card should stay on your radars. If either of those become too prevalent in the meta, this is very easy to answer to replace other floodgates. Again, not happy that something like this exists. It is only to serve to the detriment of the health of the game, but it exists, so I'll let you guys know all about it. Next up, we got a brand new card that was announced as the TCG import not long ago, and it's a common in the set, and honestly seems like it might not do much, but the card is relatively powerful, and I do expect it to see popping up in decks from time to time. That card is Haggard Lizardos. It is a water reptile link 2 with 800 attack with bottom right arrows. It requires 2 monsters with different names. The first thing that stands out here is its incredibly unique attribute and type. It's very generic. It doesn't require effect monsters. This requires different names, and its arrows are pretty solid. So that flexibility in typing alone could mean it's playable on some sort of strategies, because water reptile, like, you don't see that type of thing very often. But its effect is not bad either. You can banish a monster from your hand, field, or grave with 2,000 less attack, and then try to face a monster on the field. Make its attack become equal to the original attack of the monster banished to activate this card's effects. Then, if you banished a monster that was originally reptile, you can draw 1 card. And this is a hard one to return effect. So why is this important? Why the hell do I care about modulating attacks so much? Well, for one, this can set up some weird gimmick combos. You never know when a deck requires monsters to be certain attack. But also, it can just banish your card very freely from your field to grave, making up board space or triggering banish effects. Now, that was previously very hard to do, but SP Little Knight has made it a bit easier, being a card that can banish from the grave or field, yours or your opponent's. That being said, SP Little Knight does cost your battle phase. It also means you can't use it again in the rest of the turn if you're trying to break a field. It also requires an extra deck monster to activate that effect, so if your deck doesn't have access to Link 1s, like Relinquished Anima or Strike Your Dragon, then that effect may not be super easy, and it may turn SP into an almost Link 3, where this would just be a 2-monster commitment. The ability to modulate attack also shouldn't be overlooked. You may learn early on in the game that light points and attack points aren't super important, but as you get better, there are certain times where those things do matter, and especially for a card in the extra deck that isn't going to be a brick, that type of utility can be very important. Specifically, what could come up is this card can be used for specific OTK setups. So if our opponent has a monster field we can bring it to pretty low attack points and set up something like Utopia Double or Topologic Zeraboros, almost taking on the role of an underclock taker with less commitment plus more upside. Now, another strong attribute to this card is its ability to clear itself off the field. Like something like a B-Cop, which is more conditional, this can get rid of 2 bodies from the field and make space for new combos. And this may seem like unintuitive and counterproductive to waste bodies, but in some combos it is necessary to keep the progression of your combos going, where the summoning of the bodies is really just a means to an end of triggering search loops. Like, for example, Diamond Eye while popping your own card in Infernities, you can make this card instead. But instead of just clearing your field, this also draws a card, which is pretty good. Like, I'm not going to turn that down. So yeah, I think there are many unique uses of this card. There are just so many things this card does that aren't very commonly found that I think this will pop up pretty often in random strategies for different purposes. And if this wasn't on your list of new cards to grab from LEDE, I recommend you pick one up. And the last card I want to talk about is another brand new TCG exclusive that is Void Burial, the Dragon Undertaker. It is a level 10 illusion with 3000 attack and 0 defense. It is also TCG import, so we are going to have no precedent of OCG playing with it to determine its card quality. Like most illusions, if it battles, neither can be shown by that battle. This is important because it'll summon itself during our opponent's turn. We cannot use its attack as a pressure for IP or Appaloosa. During the main phase, if a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard, you can activate the following effect based on where this card currently is on activation. If this card is in the hand, it special summons itself. Alright, fantastic. A body puts itself on the field, that's okay. We're sticking in line with cards like Phantasme, Risk-Based Attacker, Nibiru, and Bestials, which are pretty solid versus current decks right now, including Snake Eye. But they are not enough alone. Over where this card's value really is its next effect. And that is, if it's already on the field and that effect triggers, again, it's not once per turn, you can make one effect monster your opponent controls lose 1500 attack. Then, if its attack becomes 0 by this effect, you can destroy it. So that's where the value is, right? Now, say your opponent sends off their Diebel Star for Sinful Spoils, and we summon Void Burial. Now, when they get the popular out, what do? If they want to get access to their Flameburge, they'll have to sack off the Ash to do so, which will trigger the Void Burial to pop one of their monsters. If they don't have anything else in the field, it means there's nothing for them to link away with the Flameburge immediately, which is still a win in our eyes. It forces another card commitment. The Flameburge pushing back this card rather than pushing the IP in their graveyard back in Spell Trap card zone also makes their end field more manageable. This card by itself, I don't expect to solo Snake Eye fields. It can help prevent the board from being too strong, and it can give you a body to push through things. Now, one problem is it's a dark monster, so if it goes to the graveyard, it can help them with a Dark Charmer. And then if they end on this card, it can actually serve to hurt you to some degree. But I do think this card does have some place in the metagame, if not now. It is a unique hand trap, and removal hand traps are something we see so infrequently. They only exist in like Ogre, which is pretty bad, and Nibiru, which, you know, is already being played down a ton of. This card could for sure see play. So this card is an ultra, and it's probably not going to be worth much in release. This is specifically one I think everyone should be looking into picking up a play set from. I can't imagine it'll be more than a couple dollars, and if it is ever playable and it's never been reprinted at the time, we are looking at something that could be a lot more expensive. All right, so those are all my candidates for secret picks and techs from the brand new set. If there were any cards I missed in the set that deserve a bit of praise, please let me know down below. There are a lot of powerful cards in here that I may have not gotten the chance to talk about, and like I said earlier, not every card has enough to talk about that I can give it its own video. So if this type of formatting is good for you guys, I can make more of them for future sets where all these sleeper picks in the set can be talked about briefly. Anyways, that's all for now, guys, and I'll see you all next time.